Established over 100 years ago, Watkins Books is one of the world's oldest and leading independent bookshops specializing in esoterica. We have the widest selection of esoteric books in the UK, and our friendly and knowledgeable staff are here to assist you in a unique ambience of our shop. So come and visit us in the heart of London as we're open every day.
You know, when that harsh language of truth is spoken, when the truth knocks on your door, it's a good idea to get up and answer it. So we're going to talk a little bit about that today and some of its permutations, if you will. I've written probably more than I've spoken, pretty harsh words about a number of skeptics, some of whom masquerade, in my opinion, as scientists, but who have demonstrated that they're mainly self-seeking profiteers, more concerned about their funding being kept going, celebrity status, popularity, selling books, all these wonderful things that, of course, I mean, in and of themselves aren't taboos. It's just that when we start putting those things together with dealing with the hard language of truth, sometimes we have dissonance. And this is done actually at the expense of humanity. When you get right down to it, let me say, look, since I'm being very critical of these people, if they realized that they were doing what I'm accusing them of doing, I'm sure they'd rethink it. I wouldn't be calling them traitors to the truth and all this other harsh stuff. But in this day and age, people are so asleep. That knock on the door, they've got earplugs. So unfortunately, harsh words aren't even enough to convey the real depth, the real damage done by people who simply sell out. When they have the opportunity to make what really can be historical, positive and even life-saving decisions, contributions, changes, all for the betterment of humanity. Now, of course, each of us in our own lives, if we live good, proper, right lives, we are contributing to that. But we're talking about people who have attained a certain level of status, public presence, who then could be using that. It's like more and more people take advantage of their positions of trust, their so-called expertise, authority, and influence for personal gain and comfort. Comfort is something that is going to be, for many people, a diminishing quantity and quality of life. It's so commonplace, though, that the seeking of comfort, that it's hardly noticed. It's even accepted. It's aspired to by so many people who now are trained to, virtually salivate over purely material success. Maybe we should call it material acquisition, fame, celebrity, in addition to money and things and the techno toys that are, becoming the objects of our desire more and more. Let's take Paul Davies. Paul Davies is a scientist at ASU who's written at least 5 books about extraterrestrial life, something which, of course, he knows absolutely nothing about. Now, he may be in many ways a brilliant person. One of his books is even, let me plug it, okay? Here it is. So you know I'm not making this stuff up. The Eerie Silence, reviewing our search for alien intelligence. Now, the search thing will come in a second. I not only sent Professor Davies one of my films, I suggested that I even present the Meier case at ASU in a lecture series that he has ongoing there. You know, nice forums, people come, shirts and ties, whatever. Maybe not so many shirts and ties. The response I got back from Paul Davies' assistant was, I literally laughed when I saw it. It wasn't an area of his expertise or interest. Now, I, of course, wrote back immediately that it happened to be an area of my expertise and interest. And I can understand why it isn't one of his areas of expertise, even though he advertises it, and that I was willing to, I'd come down there, I'd be glad to enlighten the ASU community along with him. Now, of course, he didn't respond to that, and of course, he just happens to be, here's this thing about searching for alien intelligence. He's the chair at SETI's post-detection task force. I'm laughing about this. These are the people, this goes on out there. This is all, you know, fun and games to these folks. So we've got, look, SETI, in case you didn't know, it's an organization that masquerades as searching for extraterrestrial intelligence. I've personally presented the Meier material to, I think it's their director, Seth Shostak. I've sent it to him numerous times over the years. I stood up at a public presentation he was giving. I offered it out to him right then and there. It was like he just looked around. This isn't happening, and he moved on. Happens with a lot of these folks. There's no real interest at SETI. There is none in knowing the truth. With all these posturing poseurs, when that door is knocked on, when truth is a knocking on the door, man, they turn up the TV loudly and they watch sci-fi. I guarantee you. Some of that's fine, isn't it? But no. Lawrence Krauss is another scientist at ASU, and he has some nice sounding stuff out there as well. But of course, when approached with documentation about the Meier case, he remains silent. He's not talking about this. He simply is not going to do it. The only time I got a response from him is when I wrote him saying, I'm going to list him as among those people who are endorsing the authenticity of the Meier case. And then he writes back, take me off your list, or I'll tell people that you added my name without permission, yeah. Now, imagine this. Here's a guy who's all about space exploration and cosmology and origins and all this stuff, but he doesn't want to know anything about Billy Meier, the man who's actually been there and done that. He wouldn't even respond to questions or comments from Matthew Wiskowitz, the man who worked on projects for NASA, like the space shuttle and the space station. The guys worked for Rockwell and Honeywell and anybody and everybody. Not a word of response from Professor Krauss to Matthew Wiskowitz from NASA. He didn't want to, I guess Krauss didn't want to risk getting Kraussified by committing himself to anything, by even acknowledging that this stuff is. These are, unfortunately, pardon me, until evidence is it, scientists like evidence. Until the evidence is in, these are the moral weaklings of this world. The ones who will not stand up, who can't tolerate hearing that hard language of truth knocking on their doors, especially if it costs them anything in terms of their credibility, their perceived status, their expertise in areas in which they claim they actually have no expertise and no interest. Pardon me if I'm talking too fast about this stuff. This gets me fired up. I've blogged about it, but I don't know if I've really complained to you about it, at least not recently. Okay. Now, considering all this, is it really a surprise that my award-winning film, And Did They Listen, was banned at ASU, with people like Davies and Krauss having vested interests in being experts on the subject? Now, I've spared no expense at all in giving noted skeptic Stuart Robbins plenty of free recognition for being the pardon butt-kissing coward that he is. Stuart, this is a scientific well, he'd like to be a scientific expert, but he's a pseudo-scientific skeptic who thought he was going to have an easy target in the Meier case. Oops, that didn't work out too well. Did it, Stu? Robin specialized in a shooting fish in the barrel approach to debunking all of the loonies and the phonies in the paranormal and UFO world, and thought he'd try his hand at the Meier case. Now, I've written about it on my blog a lot, and suffice it to say that Robbins is he's no expert to say, for sure. He works for NASA. He's no expert in anything extraterrestrial. And he's now so afraid of anything showing up on his blog about Meier in a positive, any documentation that might be seen by the folks at NASA, that out of hand, he simply censors and blocks any and everything on his blog, which could use a lot of help. He's generally getting 3 or 4 people to comment on it, as opposed to the 200-300 people now that we're getting commenting on all the stuff going on. Now, a lot of my folks obviously are repeat offenders, but we're gathering a lot of attention to the blog because there's stuff to be said there and people are coming on and banging away. But Robbins doesn't want to risk anything. And now he continues to write about the easy targets, the alien nonsense stuff. So what all this means to anyone who is a principled thinker, who's a scientist, a media person, any of that, it means, folks, if you're not willing to look at this, acknowledge it, even, they won't stand up and publicly criticize it either, because it's a matter of stepping out of their cowardice. And look, we've all been cowardly about stuff in life. It's when we decide to stand up for the truth as we know it. And we can get corrected on that, of course, but when we stand up for it, something wonderful happens, because the truth has a way of coming through. It'll correct us, it'll correct you, it corrects the opponents, all this stuff, because we want to know. The truth will set us free, but first, it's going to piss us off and all this stuff. Now, it could be that we, as the American people, are in a very bad situation here, along with the rest of the world. Look, we know that some of the most recent things, as of the taping of this show, the horrific stuff that has happened to people in Paris, and that's going on throughout the Middle East and Africa, sometimes is a mere mention on the back page of something. Hundreds, thousands of people being slain by these, degenerates, Islamic radical fundamentalists. But these things have been warned about for us too, in the West, in America. When skeptics out of hand are dismissing the Meier case, they don't want to look at it or deal with it. When presented with Meier's evidence, whether it's photographic or informational, their mindset immediately goes to, whether they acknowledge it or not, this is simply magic. It's not real, it's magic. This man can produce all this evidence magically, even though his photographs and stuff, all, pre-computer time and a couple hundred specific prophetically accurate pieces of scientific information. Well, he must have, even though it wasn't available he didn't have the internet and it's all this stuff's come in. Well, it's magic. I mean, isn't that what we're being told by people who deny this, who try to refute it? Since people are not trained, even self-trained. I'm self-trained to learn to think. It came to me by virtue of studying the Meier case. Now, people can say I'm wrong, that I'm not clear thinking or whatever. Fine, take me on about it. But when you look at the Meier material and you look at how, in order for this to be a hoax on any level, you have to find means, motive, and opportunity and establish it. Not could have, would have, should have, and he must have, and he had access to this, maybe because it was published somewhere else, we think. You can't explain away his photographic evidence that way, and you can't really explain away all of the scientific and world event-related information. So all of these nice people at these universities, I have such trouble with it because I recently had a presentation in Flagstaff. I invited all of the faculty members of the astronomy and physics department. I personally sent out an email. I even did a cover. They could all see that they're invited. Please come and challenge this, learn something new, prove me wrong, whatever you'd like to do. Pardon me. The problem was that while we had a nice but very small turnout, 2 people actually flew in from Miami to Flagstaff for my presentation. Thank you very much. But not one single faculty member showed up. Why? Because these people already know everything. Now, when I saw their photos online at ASU, I could tell you, without any doubt, these looked like really nice, intelligent people to me. But you know, if they ever were once students, if they ever once bucked the tide, if they were ever once willing to look outside of the classroom, the box of conformity that is being enforced relentlessly in universities across this poor, dwindling country of ours, they've seemingly long since given up any ambitions of that, long since been willing to risk their own aspirations, their comfort. What? Now, please, I'm not trying to, I would love to meet with these people. I'd love to discuss this, but they were too timid to a person. Maybe they're all aspiring to be like Paul Davies and Lawrence Krauss, and they want to grab the brass ring while they can, and they don't want to struggle with anything more. Okay, I understand. But you see, that isn't the way real life is going to play out anymore. We're not going to stay comfortable. Not the masses of people. When we betray the truth, when people are traitors to the truth, they betray their responsibility as scientists, to their fellow human beings, to their families, to everybody. In this whole thing with the universities, I just have to tell you, I had also sent my film up to, again, I don't know if I detailed this before, to a writer at NAU, this Northern Arizona University. He was a skeptic as well. I think I did mention this before, but this poor guy, he was so shaken by his considerations for political correctness in a university today. The 60s, people are out there, as we probably have said before, banging on things. And these kids today are just like deers in the headlights. They go blank when you talk to them about, what do you think is, the possibility that other intelligent life exists in the university? And they go, they're not prepared for it. We hear a lot about this thing about being dumbed down and what's going on, especially in America. As of today, I just looked, there's a flag counter on my website, theyfly.com. Click on that. The most recent visitor as of today, of the 122 different countries represented since just barely a month and a half ago, beginning of December, 122 different countries people have visited from. Kuwait. I think we've had visitors from Afghanistan. In this country, we've got all these timid kids who are all jacked up about, the latest techno toys and trends and what have you, but gosh, they just can't get reality to sink into their heads. How are we going to deal with that in a world where the most important thing is if you come forward wanting to talk about something trendy, tattooed, twerking, twittering transsexuals, you're given your own department at a university and everybody loves it, and we get the latest tats and the hardware stuck in our heads, turn on sports, go drink beer and all. But when we say, hey, people are dumbed down, the last thing we want to think about is that we are dumbed down. The people that are involved in the study of the Meier material, those of you that participate on my blog and watch these shows, I don't think we're dumbed down. But are we missing something? Are we failing to be able to grasp how to communicate in a non-missionizing, non-religious fervor way? Look, I'm passionate about this stuff. I'm passionate about trying to wake and shake people, because events are unfolding, and at a certain point, really, we'll probably be off the radar in a sense, unless there's some courageous people that say, hey, wait a minute, we better look at this now. They said this is coming to us, and we have these indications. And this guy Meier, 58, he warned about radical Islam sweeping across, terror to the West and Europe, and everything's going to shake. Then it's 81. Paris is going to burn, 87 more about radical Islam destroying France first from the inside and then outside forces coming in. And, look, all these lovely marches, of course, 3 point some million people, as I blogged about. You know what? Terrorists really don't care about people singing Kumbaya. They've made it pretty clear. They're out for blood. And we have to wake up. Meier and the Plejaren took that very unusual step of saying, your world needs a united global peace combat force, 300,000 people at minimum. You go out there, you confront these people, you give them the opportunity to surrender, and then if not, you deal with them militarily. This is going to shake up the reality of a lot of nice kids who are otherwise sitting around in comfortable little university classrooms playing tiddlywinks with their mind. Are we dumbed down to, is there something that we've neglected to figure out where we haven't found out yet? The magic words. So when that truth, hard language of truth, it's pounding the door, we've got to get up and answer it too. And you know what? So does everybody else sooner or later. And with that, I say, until next time.